Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Dan Illman along with Matt Bernie are taking a look at the Thanksgiving Day feature at Del Mar. It's the Grade 3 red carpet handicap. We're going 11 furlongs on the turf. $100,000 is the purse. You can bet this nice Turkey Day card at Del Mar with a DRF Bets account. Sign up at bets.drf.com. Receive a 300% deposit match. Here is the field. We've got fillies and mares in the red carpet handicap. And again, $100,000 is the purse. Your morning line favorite, Matt's the number 3, Vexatious. And boy, I thought Florent Giroux gave Vexatious a beautiful ride last time out in the Grade 3 Dowager at Keeneland. Saved every inch of ground, came out at the top of the stretch, and just couldn't reel in the gate-to-wire winner, Beach Flower. Vexatious, though, was bumped approaching the finish line and was placed first via disqualification. You always got the feeling when following this horse as a 3-year-old, she was 4th in the Kentucky Oaks on dirt, that she wanted distance, and ever since they've stretched her out on the lawn, apart for the one tough spot against the boys, she's been rock solid.
Yeah, it certainly has. I mean, you look at those 3 most recent runs, all 88, 89, 90 buyers. It puts her right there in the thick of things here on this race on Thanksgiving. I guess the concern I have is you look at it and you go, sure, she fits in here. She makes plenty of sense. You can make plenty of cases for her. She has some tactical ability. She doesn't have to come from 100 out of it. But at the same time, is there anything that screams deserving favorite in a race like this? I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on her, but I just kind of look at it and say, she can win, but I don't know if I want her at 3-1.
She won a listed stakes race over course and distance during the summer meet, and I agree with you. I think she is the horse to beat because this might not be the strongest edition of the red carpet. But again, as we talked about with several other horses this week, I don't think she has such a strong edge that I want to bet her if she goes off at 2-1. I think you use her in multiple race wagers, but just talking from a win perspective, I think she's a bit of an underlay at that price. The number 4, the Tulip, is 4-1 on the morning line, and if she drifts a little bit, she's a horse that I think you could fool around with. We haven't seen her since the Swing Time Stakes going a mile back on October the 7th, and Giovanni Franco just decided not to go wide on the turn. He kept her inside, and the next thing you know, the Tulip got all jammed up and shuffled back, and she started rolling late, altering course to the inside. I wonder if she gets it done if Franco commences a wide move on the turn. I mean, she was wired by Fahan Moura. We know she's sharp, came back to run second with a 99 buyer.
Yeah, the Tulip is a horse that I've always been a fan of since she got here to the United States earlier in 2018. The problem that I have found, very often she ends up coming up in some sort of trouble. She ends up studying. She ends up getting some sort of a rough trip as far as the ride is concerned, whatever it may be. There's also a part of me that looks at this and says, a mile and 3/8, is she better off as a late running horse at those middle distances? And is this sort of additional ground, is that going to be to her benefit, or is it going to be one of those instances where it kind of saps that late kick of hers? I'm not totally convinced that a mile and 3/8 is going to be her bread and butter, but at the same time, if you just believe from figures, she fits in here very nicely.
She won at 1.25 miles overseas. I know it was her second lifetime start over a synthetic surface, but she has that stout European pedigree. I think if there's some pace, she might come with a good kick. And I think the Timeform US pace projector is right. I think they've got the 2 right leaders, but I wonder if they're going to be cooking early. The 9 is expected to be on the lead. We'll get to the Manitoba bred escape clause in a second, but India Mantuana's best game might be on the lead. Look at that race 2 starts back over this course and distance when she was trained by Phil D'Amato. She just went Fahan Moura on that field, went right to the front and bottomed him out. They tried to rate last time out, cutting back to a mile. It didn't work. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyler Bays is on a send here.
Agreed. I disagree with the pace projector. I would flip the 5 and the 9. I think the 5 has one way to go. You try to bottom this field out. You stretch out in distance from a mile to 1 mile and 3/8. And like you say, that run 2 starts back. That was the best run that she's had in, years. So I think this is an instance where you take advantage of that and you say, we like the turf course, this distance. Maybe from this class standpoint, it's going to be a little bit tough, but I think her best opportunity to win is to go and try to bottom this field out. I think she goes, and I think the 9 sits off.
And I think if the 5 goes, though, the pace will be fair to fast, and that could help the number 2, Pants on Fire, who didn't have that situation in her most recent start at Del Mar on August the 23rd. Look at that 1 1/16 race. The half-mile split for the leader was 49 seconds flat. How is Pants on Fire supposed to win? Coming from next to last. She actually ran quite well to only be beaten 3 lengths. Poster Girl, the runner-up, came back to run 3rd in her next 2 starts. Buyers of 88, 89. One of those races, a graded stakes race. While her buyer speed figures aren't very impressive looking, 2 starts back in the yellow ribbon while well beaten at a big price here into 120 Timeform US fig. I'm worried about this filly.
Yeah, she's interesting in here, and I think the other thing too that I like about her is I think this distance is actually best suited for her as opposed to some of these other girls in here. You look and see what she did at Santa Anita in that possibly perfect at 1.25 miles. That sort of I call it what you will. Maybe she was just even throughout, but I think that translates to these longer distances where she ran third that day. And then you go to that Santa Barbara where she ran third coming from a little bit off the pace at 1.5 miles. I think this distance is going to work for her. I'd be lying if I said I was totally convinced that she loved Del Mar. You see that she's 0 for 6, but like you say, she has kept good company, and if you believe that she can get one of her better races in her, I think she's got a puncher's chance.
I wonder how cranked the 7 Lucy D is going to be for this race. We haven't seen her since April. Something tells me Richard Baltus is going to have her ready to go. This might be her last start if she's retired at the end of her 6-year-old campaign as a stakes-placed runner. Her last chance to earn graded black type. So I have a feeling she's going to be set for this effort. But the layoff is concerning at this distance for the 7 Lucy D.
I've always been a fan of Lucy D. I guess I look at her, though, and feel like this level might be slightly too tough for her. I mean, these past 2 runs, it's not as though she was in against monsters, and I recognize that most recent run, Queen Blossom, came back and earned that 88, and Cause for Commotion came back and was the next out winner with a 90. But it's probably going to take something close to that in order to win or be competitive in a spot like this, and she's only done that once or twice in her career. I think she might just be a slight notch below.
Before we get to our picks, we'll discuss a couple of long shots. The number 1 Victress has only raced 3 times this year at the age of 5, but has done some really good work in Western Canada. 2 wins, a score in the Grade 3 Ballerina last time out, going 1 1/8 at Hastings. She ran in this race last year. She was 100 to 1. She passed a couple of tired horses. I just am not sure turf's her bag, but she's a nice, honest mare.
Yeah, I don't even know if I want to say that the turf, I don't know, is her situation. I think it's just probably a product of facing much better horses than what she's accustomed to, because those 2 turf races, although she was beaten by 1,000,000, they're the 2 fastest buyers of her career. So there's a part of me that looks at it and says, well, maybe the grass is okay, but truth be told, they just don't know that she's this good.
So High Society is a 3-year-old filly taking on older horses. Multiple stakes placed for Chad Brown earlier this year, but 2 starts in Southern California just overmatched both times. 87 to 1, 166 to 1. She's still running in a graded stakes race. She's going to be a big price. The connections are just hoping. She's been crying out for distance.
I think that's the only thing you can hope for, because those races were against straight 3-year-olds. Now she faces older horses stretching out in distance, and she's never run anything remotely close. She's a pass for me.
Let's take a look at our top picks for this race. Escape Claus got us last time out in the Catherine Crosby, a Manitoba bred making her turf debut in start number 25. And listen, she had good tactical speed out of the gate. She prompted the pace. She followed 3 wide splitting horses turning into the stretch. And while she didn't get by, she was placed first via disqualification. And she might be sitting a great trip. If you think India Montuano is going to give up this race readily if she goes to the front, Escape Claus could be in command turning into the lane.
That's kind of the way that I looked at it, and you're right. I totally swung and missed on her in the Catherine Crosby. I didn't like really anything about her coming down here, and she went out there, and not only did she ran quite well, and like you say, wherever you kind of landed as far as the DQ is concerned, she acquitted herself quite nicely, and I love the gallop out there that day. I feel like it was an instance where she took advantage of a subpar group in the Catherine Crosby, but to be honest, I think it's another opportunity like that on Thanksgiving, where maybe she's taking advantage of a subpar group, and also you factor in that what I think is going to be a perfect setup where she sits just off India Mantuano, gets first run, try to hold off the closers. I just think she's going to work at a good trip in here. I don't love her by any stretch, but I think she's going to work at a really nice trip.
In multiple race wagers, I want to use 2 horses. My second choice, the Tulip, I think is going to run well off that troubled effort, and I think the distance will be okay. And I want to give a little bit of a chance to the 6 Siberian Iris, who it seemingly took forever to get through her entry-level optional claiming condition. She did it last time out. She got a nice trip and ride from Drayden Van Dyke, and she kind of grinded down that field late. It was not a strong field, but I wonder if Dick Mandela's gotten this horse going the right way. It's her 3rd start of the cycle. The dam and Irish bred won at 1.25 miles, so maybe this horse with a little bit of pace, and I think there will be some, can come rolling late at a price. She's 6 to 1 on the line, but I want to use her in the Tulip and multis. I'm going 6, 4, 3, and 9. Matt's top pick in the Grade 3 red carpet handicap. Nice card at Del Mar on Thanksgiving Day. Bet it with a DRF Bets account and the 300% deposit match that goes along with it. Bets.drf.com is where you need to go for all the details and approximate post time for the red carpet, 1:30 Pacific. Happy Thanksgiving.